com. Also broadcasting live to you on Ustream.tv.
Oh, yeah.
So check it out if you can. If you go to Ustream.tv, you can pull us up by simply typing in Flint Talk Radio on the search line, all one word, Flint Talk Radio. Go ahead and pull that up there, and you guys can see us live. Feel free to share it on Facebook and all your other social media sites, and hopefully we'll be able to get some good answers from the representative. It's nice to have him out there supporting. He's one of the few people that we have in the state government that have been working hard to represent us and to actually listen to us and then voice our views.
Yep, and answer some questions and call in.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful. We're glad to have him.
So we'll be anxious to have that. Chelsea, kudos for setting it up. Rocks.
Thanks, guys.
Well, if he calls into the number here, people won't be able to call here because that's only one line coming in. Right. So if he calls in here, he'll be on the one you'll be hearing when they come in. So
right on.
So just call us back in a little bit then.
Or call
it's like waiting on
or you also got to give out your text, or you can do texting too.
Yeah.
So
or email us. You can email me.
Hey, don't we have prizes too for people that call in?
Yeah. If you email me at Chelsea@Genesee3C.com.
Or call in.
Or call into the club and they'll relay a message. Or call in here.
Well, don't we have a door prize? We have to ask questions at the club.
We should have a door prize.
Are we doing something like?
Well, if they left us any questions they wanted answered for the representative, we'd give them some free swag.
Woo! Swag.
Apparently.
What time's Representative Irwin supposed to be calling?
In about a minute.
About a minute. Okay.
Well, I guess, any minute.
Any minute now.
Your guys' questions will have to be on hold then, except for
So we're pretty much
text right now.
Yeah. Text.
You guys all have pretty much all of our numbers.
The club number 810-250-0054.
Yes.
Just call there and relay your questions if you have any.
Yep.
I'll be glad to ask those for you for sure.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Or bombard Jamie at Snack Bar.
Or if you guys have KIK, you can always hit me up. If you guys are watching right now, if you guys have Kick Instant Messenger, it's just JooMoney.com, spelled JOOMONEYDOTCOM. Like JooMoney.com, like spelling it out. Yeah, it'll go right to my KIK, right to my phone. Sorry guys, that's the best way to do instant messaging without getting too personal with people with cell phone numbers. Kick's a great instant message relay for that.
Yes.
Yes.
Very excited to have him on the air. I don't believe a lot of our members are aware of this decrim bill at all, so I know a lot of them are familiar with decrim bills like in Ferndale and Lansing, but on a state level seems to be news to everyone. So glad to relay it.
Well, and I know that we have a few different decriminalizations that have already been done in the state. They've been done more of on a local level, like city. Example, Flint is one of them. And there's different forms of decriminalization. So different levels, and a lot of it has to do with how the bill itself is being written or how the ordinance is written if it's a local situation. This is something that it's not something that we would be voting on as a general public. This is a bill that would be passed through the legislature, like the majority of our laws are. So this is a more traditional way of getting a law passed where the representatives are the ones who are writing it and then promoting it and so forth. So it's a good thing to see. We just want to find out exactly what the details are, how this would affect us, and we'll get the representative's word on this hopefully here in just a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. Well, let's see. I've got some texts.
This is the easy way. Get this out to a few thousand people in a second.
Oh, apparently Jeff Irwin called at the club.
Nice.
If somebody called and it didn't work, or?
Apparently they called the club. I gave them our number.
Well, the phone's working too, so I just checked.
Well, I'm sure they directed them. So it's like any second now. It's kind of like waiting for Christmas to like open up your presents. Like, is it? Is it?
Pretty much. Hopefully.
We're all gonna like jump up to grab the phone once it rings. Like, ah.
I'm sure they passed along the correct phone number.
So if you guys are at the club right now and listening into us, and we have a whole hour show here going on with lots of good information and some really good tidbits for you guys to sit down and enjoy. So you should probably get up right now. We have a break and go up to the cafe and grab yourself a drink, a coffee.
Whoa!
Here we go.
Here we go.
All right. I think we have our Representative Jeff Urban on the line with us.
Yeah, sorry for the delay. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much for joining us live. We're very excited to speak with you.
Yes, good afternoon.
Excellent.
My name is Chelsea. Myself and Chad visited the town hall meeting a few weeks ago in regards to this decriminalization bill. And we were really, really excited to hear the things that you had to say. And we are hoping that you can talk maybe a bit more about the intro to the bill for our listeners so we can get a general rundown of how the bill is going to affect the state of Michigan.
Sure. Well, I was proud to introduce House Bill 4623 a few months back with bipartisan support. And as you mentioned, we've been having a lot of success with the town hall meetings and with fellow legislators talking about this issue, and it's been heartening to see because this is an issue that I've had my eye on for a long time, for a lot longer than I've been in the legislature. Before I was in the legislature, I served for 11 years in county government, and I saw all of the money that was being wasted in our county on arresting and trying and incarcerating marijuana users, and it didn't seem to be a good policy from any angle. It was costly, it was ineffective, and it was also, I felt, a violation of our core principles as Americans.
Absolutely.
And so when I saw all that, and I had an opportunity to go to the legislature, I knew that it was my responsibility to start trying to move this issue in the right direction. We all know that the war on drugs has been a huge failure. It's been a failure in every way. It's been a costly endeavor. We spend an estimated $325 million a year arresting, trying, and incarcerating marijuana users. And in the process, we grind all sorts of people and their families and their lives into fine sand when we push them through the criminal justice system with great prejudice. And that's not working for our communities. It's not working for those families. And it's not working to prevent people from getting marijuana. And so we need to have a different policy. We need to have a different approach. Ultimately, I think we need to move towards a legal and regulated market in the substance. And so what I did is I thought, let's take a first step. Let's stop the argument that almost everyone agrees and start with decriminalization. So that's why I introduced earlier this year. And like I said at the beginning, I've been heartened by the energy behind it. I've been really grateful for all the support that I've gotten from you and others. And I think this is the right time to start having this discussion about how we can have a more productive policy, how we can have a policy that's more in line with our values of freedom here in America, and how we can have a policy that's not so costly and destructive. And I haven't even gotten into some of the ways that our current prohibition policies enrich and empower violent criminals and gangs and drive a lot of the crime in our communities. There's just so many different angles to argue this issue from, and I think that really the wind is at our back. I'll stop with this. We got some research from the Pew Center on Public Research just a couple months ago on this issue, and these are national numbers, but I still think they're telling. For the first time in our nation's history, at least recent history, a majority of Americans support legalizing marijuana, just over 50%. But the percentage of Americans who believe in decriminalization, the percentage of Americans who believe that we spend more than it's worth trying to enforce marijuana prohibition is almost three-quarters. It's 72% of Americans. And so that's great ground for us to be working on and trying to generate a win for this issue.
I agree wholeheartedly. Absolutely. And I think most of our viewers, especially myself, is interested in how the fiscal change of power, per se, will affect law enforcement with their budgets, the reduced fees, reduced incarcerations. How are we going to supplement that, in a sense, for our state to make up the loss?
Maybe I don't understand your question. what I see is I see our state spending between state and local governments hundreds of millions of dollars that is essentially wasted money.
Right.
If we were to stop doing that, that would be hundreds of millions of dollars that we could put into schools or roads or investments that actually promote the prosperity of our state in the future.
Sure.
So it's not a costly endeavor. If what you're asking is, how do these law enforcement agencies make their budget whole when they no longer have,
Yes.
as much money coming in from, civil asset forfeiture and from fines from violators? I think that, let's take that in two parts. One, the government basically loses money on every sale when it comes to busting marijuana users. So there's really no meat on that bone. The government doesn't charge people enough, even though it's many thousands of dollars. The government doesn't charge people enough to sort of make up their cost, so to speak, on those busts. Really, the place where the government does bring in some money is through the civil asset forfeiture process. Now, civil asset forfeiture across the entire state brings in maybe $30 million a year, somewhere in that range.
Right. I believe you
So
were
when you
mentioning
put that $30 million a year up against the total cost of law enforcement in the state, we're talking about a drop in the bucket.
Wow.
Right. Let's maybe take it back to our viewers maybe a bit more on what exactly we are decriminalizing, and what that means for recreational use. If you could maybe explain a bit in detail about the bill itself.
No, absolutely. I didn't touch on that at all, so thanks.
Yep.
The bill, what the bill does is it would change the criminal penalties for being caught with an ounce or less of marijuana from what the penalties are currently, which is a misdemeanor and substantial fines, to a civil infraction and a small fine. The fine starts at $25 for a first offense and goes up to $100 for a third offense. So basically what we're doing is we're talking about replacing a system where recreational users who are apprehended could end up with a misdemeanor that will be on their record forever and substantial fines and maybe even jail time, and replacing that with the sort of system that we've had in Ann Arbor for 40 years, which is that it's basically like a traffic ticket where you pay a small fine and you move on.
Right. How do we plan on enforcing this with our law enforcement? I know the city of Flint had a decrim passed, but city officials had made it very clear to our citizens that they have no support behind this, and they still intend on charging and arresting and issuing fees and other things for people that are caught with even under an ounce of marijuana. So is there maybe some sort of educational tool we can present to state police on how to properly enforce this? I don't think any issue has been met in regards to education and marijuana with our law enforcement, since it is a bill that is likely to be passed. Is that correct? How is this being received on the House
side?
Yeah, on the.
Sure. Well, I think there's a couple different questions there. I'll
Yeah,
take the second
absolutely.
one first.
Sure.
What are the what's the likelihood of House Bill 4623 passing?
Yes.
I think that the likelihood of it being passed and signed by the governor in the near future is probably pretty low. I think that what's going to happen is that even though there are a number of legislators who support this, there are a number of prominent political figures who are vocally opposed. One of them is Attorney General Bill Schuette.
Exactly.
He's going to come out against this very strong, and he has influence within the Republican Party. And as we know, the Republican Party controls every lever of power in Lansing. Also over on the Senate side, the Senate Judiciary Committee is headed by Senator Rick Jones, who, in my experience, has been rather antagonistic towards medical marijuana users, much less relaxing criminal penalties for recreational users. So I think we've got some big hurdles. But what I think is happening now is that more and more of the legislators in Lansing are hearing from their constituents. And what they're hearing is exactly what the voters in Flint say,
Right.
which is that this is a failed policy, prohibition doesn't work, it's expensive, and we should stop it. And so what I would employ your listeners to do is to call their representative, call their senator, urge them to take the right position on this bill, urge them to come up publicly in support of it, and ask them the question. That's how this gets done. It's one vote at a time, one citizen call at a time, and that's how we're going to pass it. Like I said earlier, I think the wind's at our back, and the long-term trajectory is that these laws are going to change, but the same sort of entrenched forces that are putting their head in the sand in Flint saying, we don't care what the citizens voted for, we don't care what the electorate wants, we know better, those same forces are in Lansing as well, and they're going to be opposed to this bill, and they're going to make it difficult to pass. Together, with the right kind of support and push, I think we can do it, but I'm not hopeful that it's going to happen immediately. I think that this issue still has some ripening to do, and introducing this bill and getting people talking about it is a key part of that ripening.
Right.
Now, the other question you asked was about education and how do you educate the law enforcement community. Frankly, I'm not sure if I'm the right person to answer that question. I don't know. I'm really thinking more about the political side of this.
Sure.
How do we generate the right type of political support in our communities such that the type of leaders who would ignore the public sentiment and who would violate the will of the voters can't win. We need to create a situation where the leadership in our cities and the leadership in our state government has to respect the will of the voters, or else they're out on their behind.
Yep.
That's the way it should be, and that's why we need to organize and make sure that the people who support a more sensible drug control policy get together, work together, try to reach across the lines that sometimes divide us, and push for better policy, and try to make sure that political officials and law enforcement officials who ignore the law and who try to enforce their own personal views rather than the law, that those people don't survive in office. Now, I think that Bill Schuette is going to have a little bit of a tough time in his hands next year, ballot box and active election, when 2/3 of the voters supported medical marijuana in 2008, and he's still trying to refight those battles. He's still running people through the court system and trying to ruin people's lives over medical marijuana use. And that is an ugly, ugly story that's going to have to be told next year. And there's no one better to tell it than the patients and the caregivers who are out there on the front lines, seeing what people are dealing with every day. People who are struggling with serious health conditions, people who are dying, who simply want to have a better quality of life. And you've got people like Bill Schuette, and you've got people like the law enforcement community in Flint who are saying, too bad. We don't care. We're turning a blind eye to you. We're turning a blind eye to the voters who support a more sensible policy on marijuana control, and that's too bad. I think those people are going to have a hard time getting elected in the future, and I think it's our job to make sure that's the case.
I certainly hope so.
Absolutely.
Do you maybe see any hopefuls to run for his office that maybe we should keep an eye on to possibly vote for?
Yeah, potentially. There's one gentleman who's been traveling around the state, Mark Totten, who's been, he hasn't been openly campaigning for Attorney General, but he's been saying the sort of things that might indicate that he's thinking about taking that step. This is a guy who's a very intelligent attorney from the Kalamazoo area, and speaks very, very well, and has a number of really great ideas about how the Attorney General's office could be better used to handle the sorts of issues that the Attorney General's office really should be focusing on. The types of cross-jurisdictional crime that county prosecutors have a hard time getting a handle on, the sort of consumer protection issues that county prosecutors just simply don't have the bandwidth or the capacity to deal with, financial fraud, elder abuse, environmental laws that are being flaunted by certain polluters in our state because they know that the DEQ and the Attorney General's office isn't looking over their shoulder. So he's got some great ideas on some of those issues. And I think it's important for all of us who care about medical marijuana to make sure that we ask Mark Totten, where is he on that issue? What can he tell us about what the Attorney General's office is going to do if he gets elected? And maybe most straightforwardly, will you actually enforce the law, or will you go out of your way to enforce your personal beliefs like our current Attorney General?
Sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You mentioned that there's quite a bit of opposition. We're well aware of that. What are some of the objections that you're hearing to, like, for example, your decriminalization bill? Are you hearing any specific objections or counteractions from our opposing parties that are out there?
Right, of course. Yeah, I'd say that there are a couple main groups of arguments that get deployed. One is sort of the tired, old, reefer madness kind of ideas that I'm sure you've heard a million times.
Sure.
You always hear the arguments about gateway drugs. You hear the arguments about it getting into the hands of children more easily. You hear arguments about addictive qualities and dangerous aspects of marijuana use that are typically very much overblown. So you hear all those same arguments we've heard for a long time, and most of those arguments are relatively easy to debunk. When you start talking about addiction, there's research on that. When you start talking about the gateway issue, there's research on that. And when you start talking about keeping marijuana out of the hands of young people, marijuana has never been more available in the hands of young people than it is today under a failed prohibition regime. It's easier for kids in high school to get that than it is for them to get alcohol because we have a more sensible policy towards alcohol where we try to regulate it and control it rather than trying to pretend that if we stick our head in the sand, it'll go away. So there's all those arguments. And then, there are some other interesting arguments. So one I'll talk about is that at that town hall that you mentioned, Chelsea, there was a prosecutor from Acosta County who came down and spoke in opposition to my bill.
Yes.
And I thought that he made one really good point about my bill, which is that it doesn't go far enough.
Sure.
If we really want to have a safer, more regulated system where the criminal elements are not in control of the market, then we do eventually have to legalize and regulate the product. And so I think that's right. I think that my bill doesn't go far enough. But I acknowledge that, and I think that it's a totally reasonable first step to just staunch the bleeding, stop the expensive failed policy, and then start working on what's the best way to regulate this product. What's the fairest way to make sure that we accomplish our goals as a state with respect to marijuana.
Cool. Sounds great. I really hope that you have lots and lots of support. Do you expect a town hall meeting across the state or any sort of conference in support of this bill that we could possibly attend? Or
it's not specifically in the works, but I think it's something that maybe we should talk about offline. It's something that I am more than willing to do, and I think could be an important part of moving it forward. I do think, though, that right now where we stand is that the bill got introduced in the spring. There's another bill out there by Representative Colton, which is the Provisioning Center bill, the dispensary bill.
Yes.
And that was also introduced in the spring. And both of those bills have been assigned to the Judiciary Committee. The chair of the Judiciary Committee is Representative Kevin Cotter. He represents the Mount Pleasant area. And it's his sole discretion, really, as to whether or not those bills get taken up and voted on or not. Now, he has been very, I think, open and willing to talk about these issues. And his actions so far have been that he has scheduled one hearing on marijuana distribution, which was really kind of targeted towards Colton's bill, but a little bit broader than that. And I think that shows a willingness on his part to have these conversations. So what I think Representative Cotter needs to know from his community and from around the state is that there's solid ground politically for him to walk out on this issue and to at least start the conversation. And, maybe part of helping create that solid ground, at least in the minds of our Republican colleagues, is to have some of those town hall meetings. So I think it was a great meeting in Grass Lake, and we should probably do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully we can do one maybe in the middle of the state, maybe more this way. I know lots of constituents are interested to have that chat up here, so they would love to hear what you have to say. So yeah, we should talk about setting something like that up.
I know you had a few questions, Chelsea, about the provisioning center bill.
Yeah.
Would it be okay if we asked you a few of those questions, Representative Verla?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. We are aware that you are also a co-sponsor for the 4271. And we are interested in, are there any parts of that bill that you perhaps don't support or would like to be rewritten? We had attended a conference last week, Chad and I, about this, and they are rewriting a few parts of the bill. But is there any pros and cons to the bill that you would like to talk about, or how you?
Sure. Well, I mean, some of the. Well, let me start here.
Sure.
Representative Colton introduced that bill last session as well, sort of at the end of the session, and I did not co-sponsor it at that time, mainly because of some of the provisions that were in the bill and that are still in the bill that I'm not in love with.
Right.
I'm not in love with the idea that local communities can ban dispensaries. We don't usually allow local communities to ban businesses. Usually we think of America as a free country with free markets and that sort of thing.
Right.
And so I don't love that. I also don't love some of the record keeping requirements because I'm just afraid that that's going to amount to a hit list for the DEA.
Yes.
Or if the Attorney General wants to get his hands on that, maybe he'll go out and ruin some patients' lives based on those records. That worries me.
Right.
Having talked to a lot of the advocates, a lot of the folks around the state about those concerns, I'm certain that those concerns are at least in part bona fide. Now, having said that, I did co-sponsor the bill this time because politics is the art of the possible, and you don't always get 100% of what you want. Sure. And I do think that we really need to have some sort of authorization for dispensaries in Michigan. I think that the caregiver model is great. I think it works wonderfully for a lot of people, maybe even most people. But I do think that there are a number of scenarios where you can present where a dispensary is basically necessary in order to meet the medical needs of some of our patients. If you've got someone who gets a cancer diagnosis and maybe doesn't have a long time to live and is seeking that relief, what are they supposed to do? Go get a caregiver and start growing plants? By the time those plants mature, they could be dead.
Right. Sure.
And that doesn't make any sense. People should be able to get a recommendation, walk right into a place where that recommendation can be satisfied. And the caregiver model doesn't always provide that opportunity. And then also, a lot of the folks who need medical marijuana or want to try medical marijuana or who really feel that that's the medicine that works best to satisfy their needs, a lot of folks who find themselves in that situation, they don't have a drug dealer. They don't know a caregiver. They don't know someone who is growing. Mm-hmm. So how do they find that person, right? Do they go through LARA? I mean, we know how efficient LARA has been with the millions of dollars they've collected from the medical marijuana community. Sure. Where do those patients go? We need to have dispensaries for those types of patients. And then finally, we really need to have dispensaries because there's all sorts of technology now that's going into medical marijuana. Mm-hmm. You've got the tinctures and the salves and the oils and the all sorts of different products, non-smokable treatments and all sorts of medibles, and all sorts of different strains that have different toxicological qualities and properties. Sure. And so, a patient might need access to a variety of different strains, or they might benefit from access to a variety of different strains. And I don't think we should close the door on that by making them work with one caregiver who can only grow so much. Sure. It's just not practical, I don't think, for one caregiver to grow a whole variety of strains and have a whole variety of different preparations. There's very few caregivers who have the savvy to pull together all those types of products. Sure. See, I think you need to have dispensaries, and for me, the need for that safe and legal access outweighs some of the parts of the bill that I don't like. Let me say one other thing. I also think that this bill provides an opportunity to fix some of the really just plainly ignorant things that have happened in the last few years through the courts. I mean, we had this recent ruling from the appeals court about concentrates. Yep. That is absurd from a from a scientific and sort of fact-based standpoint. That doesn't mean what they said. And the legislature really has an opportunity to just fix that, and putting it into the visiting center bill, I think, would be a reasonable way to fix it.
Yes, absolutely. Because I believe currently there's nothing in that bill about tinctures, medibles, but there is only one addition about employees of the provisioning center can use topicals while they are working. That's really all that I had read about that. So are you hoping that they will maybe add the issue on concentrates? Is that something that we can still add to the bill?
That'd be something I'd like to see added. I mean, I don't see why we couldn't just wrap that in there and try to get it done.
And what are the odds of that happening?
What are the odds of that happening?
Sure.
I can't really handicap it yet. I haven't had that specific conversation with Representative Colton. I intend to.
Wonderful. That's good to know.
And I think that he would probably be open to it. But once again, like I said at the beginning, the politics is the art of the possible, and sometimes you propose things that aren't possible, to make a point. But I also think that in the interest of the patients out there in Michigan, it behooves us all to try to keep their interests front and center. And if we can get something done that would help them, let's try to do it.
Sure.
Also, I think that the provisioning center bill has a little bit more legs on it than your average bill. I mean, if we were to try to fix the concentrates issue with a standalone bill, which would be another reasonable strategy, there would have to be a whole effort arranged behind that, and there would have to be a good bill sponsor and all of that. Right now, 4271 already has a good bill sponsor. There's already been a lot of energy put behind that to try to pass it and to lobby lawmakers to understand the issues and to become comfortable with it. And in fact, some of the parts of the bill that I don't like are some of the parts that really make it a more viable bill. For instance, the piece about local governments being able to ban dispensaries.
Yes.
That right there is a critical piece to pick up the necessary votes to pass the bill, I believe. Because it allows legislators who are not supportive of medical marijuana, or who are barely or with great trepidation supporters of medical marijuana, it allows them to at least say, look, we provide this new option, we made this legal, it was the right thing to do, and if any of our communities don't like it, they have the right and the authority to reflect their community values and their local ordinances. And, I think that's an important piece of the politics of the bill.
I agree, but I know a lot of patients are concerned that will also limit access for them. They will still have to drive to the other side of town where there's not an ordinance against it. And they're also really weary on this bill because it does also limit the amount of medicine they can get. It will limit their 2.5 ounces every 10 days.
Yep.
So I do understand
I think that's an issue. I know that's been raised with Representative Colton. I don't know if he's prepared to change that aspect or not. And I know that there's been a number of folks who've been trying to move that limit up a little bit.
Sure.
And I think that those patients are right to be concerned that maybe their local community will ban it and that will negatively impact them. I think they're absolutely right. I can't disagree with them. A couple things I will say, though, is one, I think that if this happens, you will see some enterprising providers, being willing to probably for a small upcharge deliver that product. I also think that having a resource across town that you can go to, or just across the city limits that you can go to, is better than having no resource at all.
That's true.
That's
so there
right
is
now.
an upside to everything. So it does definitely seem like we're getting our foot in the door.
Now,
Right, and I also think that once we get our foot in the door, I think that once people see these provisioning centers operating for a period of time, what's going to happen is that the good people in the business, the people who are, fair price, good product, clean atmosphere, friendly employees, those people are going to be successful, and they're going to grow, and they're going to continue. And the people who are not running a good provisioning center, they're not going to have as much business, and they will falter. And I think that eventually what will happen is people will recognize that these facilities are not contributing to crime, probably the opposite. They're adding to local property values. They're, filling vacant storefronts. They're employing people. and they're, a part of the community that is not negative. If anything, it's neutral. And I think that once people realize that, that's going to help knock down even more walls elsewhere.
I think so. One of the questions I had about the provisioning centers is, in the regulation of that, it looks to me like this is going to be left up to the local jurisdiction to decide how to regulate them or decide who is going to regulate them. Is that accurate?
I think that's more or less the case. Although I do think that there are some, there's some boundaries on that. But yeah.
Okay. And the other thing I guess we had a question of too is this similar to where we're seeing in other states where there would be some sort of a state licensing or something like that, like a state application fee in order to become a provisioning center? Like, who becomes a provisioning center? Is this a group of collective caregivers working together, or is this a separate entity in itself?
Well, I think that the way it's contemplated is that it could be either, but in the case where it's a collective of caregivers, they're going to have to organize under some banner, so it really becomes more the latter, right? There's going to have to be some entity created. As far as what sort of licensing they have to go through at the state level and how much that's going to cost and everything, I'm afraid I don't know. I'm sorry.
Okay. I'm getting a lot of information on how patients and caregivers are going to be regulated as far as how much medicine they can pick up, but how is that going to be regulated with these provisioning centers on how much medicine is in their facilities? Is there going to be some state-run agency coming in to check their weight, make sure they're not over their weight for their, I guess it's not a dispensary anymore, their provisioning center? They have medicine coming out and medicine coming in that caregivers can drop off. I'm under the impression of. So how is there going to be that regulation put in place? If you understand what I'm saying.
Some of that's going to have to come out in the promulgation of rules.
Sure.
Usually the way it works is the legislature grants a certain amount of authority to the department to make those determinations. It's most likely going to be LARA.
Okay.
And that, those usually what gets put in the statute are the most important sort of boundaries on the regulation, and usually there's a certain amount of flexibility given to the departments on these matters because, frankly, that makes more sense. I mean, sometimes the legislature likes to stipulate those terms in the law because then we're certain to get our way, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. But in most situations, as time marches on, sometimes things need to be tweaked. And
Sure.
Usually the legislature puts it in the statute in such a way where the department can make those tweaks. Now, my expectation is that it's going to be Laurel who's going to be doing a limited amount of, monitoring and compliance assurance with provisioning centers, and that there'll be some sort of regime set up to do that. Mm-hmm. Exactly how often and what are going to be the weight limits and all that, I'm not entirely sure, honestly. But I think mostly based on what the bill says, I think mostly what they're going to be looking at is trying to make sure that people are staying under those weight limits in terms of what's going out the door rather than what's coming in the door.
Sure. Funny how that works. Sure.
Absolutely. One of the things we wanted to ask you is, we've seen you step up countless times now, and represent the medical marijuana community, represent policy change when it comes to dealing with marijuana, looking at it from a social impact issue versus a criminal one.
Sure.
One of the things I wanted to ask you, Representative Irwin, is when we originally got started back in this 4 or 5 years ago, a lot of political people, I guess for lack of a better term, really apprehensive to talk about marijuana or to get involved. You've been able to step up. How has this impacted you in your political career? I mean, has this been a good thing, or are you starting to get like a tongue-in-cheek every time you walk in the room?
I don't know. Time will tell. My philosophy demands that I don't really pay attention to that. First and foremost, I just try to do what I'm doing today well, and then do it again tomorrow. Hopefully, I can continue to be successful in staying involved and having an opportunity to make change. That's what I want to do.
We certainly.
I think that what you're trying to get at is, is this safe ground for politicians to come out and start talking about these issues more openly, because there's just been such a stigma attached to it for so long.
For sure. What's the air
I
like
really
down
think
there?
there is safe ground. What I hear overwhelmingly from the public is positive. Have I gotten some negative comments? Of course. But overwhelmingly, I hear people saying it's time that we finally deal with these issues honestly. So I think it's been good. The media certainly has been reacting very, very positively. There's a lot of people who are interested in having this conversation. So I think it's mostly been good. I'm out front of a lot of issues. So I certainly work real hard on trying to protect the Great Lakes and clean air and clean water. Those issues are essential.
Yeah,
to
thank
what gets
you.
Up in the morning. Clean environment is so important to our state's future. So I spend a lot of time working on those issues, promoting clean energy, trying to put more resources into our classrooms and give people more of an opportunity to access higher ed. So I spend so much time working on a lot of other issues that I don't feel that I've really gotten pigeonholed on this one.
Good.
But
That's wonderful.
Certainly there is the occasional joke in the Capitol, but I don't mind that. I think that's part of what
Makes
keeps
you
us
stand
friendly.
out a bit. They sure won't forget you, will they?
I hope not. I don't know.
We certainly appreciate you being the leader, or one of the leaders in this area, and having the backbone, to stand up and to be willing to talk about these, despite what people may or may not say. I think it's a good thing for us to have leaders who are willing to take a look at these issues from a sensible approach, and I think that's really what you are doing. I certainly appreciate that. I mean,
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
decrim bill, we can see the wisdom behind that, and then the provisioning center bill as well. I mean, these just sort of echo sentiment of sensibility, and I think you should be applauded for that.
Yes.
Yes.
And also,
absolutely.
too,
Well, I
have to ask
appreciate that, and let me take the opportunity to thank all of you, for the work you're doing, because the reason why this issue is enjoying the kind of support it is in the public is because there have been, hard work done by activists and engaged citizens for years on these issues. And it's finally getting to the point now where the iceberg is starting to lift above the water, and people are seeing that, no, the public really wants and is demanding a different approach. And so, to the extent that I'm able to, speak out on these issues and be recognized for it, I appreciate that. But I just want you to know that I understand that this issue is moving forward, not so much because of what I'm doing, but more because of what you're doing and what your listeners are doing, and that phone call that they make to their senator, or when one of your listeners goes to the town hall meeting and asks their representative, should I be able to have access to the medicine that I choose for my ailments? I think that what we're going to find out is that those questions, those activities, that organizing that's going on at the local level, where people are getting together and saying, how do we change the law in Flint? How do we change the law in Ferndale? How do we get Lansing decriminalized? That work is the most important work.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and answering our questions for us. We really appreciate your time and all of the hard work and energy that you put into this. Definitely want to encourage our listeners, as Representative Irwin stated, please call your senators and your representatives and let them know that you have support for this issue, and that it is something that we need to have brought about and talked about. For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Plus, too, I mean,
Absolutely. Yep. Pick up the phone, call your senator, call your rep, ask them if they support House Bill 4623, and ask them why. They should be able to provide a clear answer. And also, get involved. Show up at the city council meetings once in a while. Go speak during citizen time. Don't be afraid to let your voice be heard, because it needs to be heard.
Yeah. I'm sorry. All I was gonna say is, if you aren't happy with your representative, and you are like, how does you get someone so cool as Representative Irwin in your area? All you gotta do is go out and vote. Like, I know we always talk about how voting is like so easy and stuff. Well, Representative Irwin got into office because he got voted in by a bunch of people who were active and really happy with what he was presenting. So they went out and voted for him. Same with you guys. All you gotta do is go out there and vote. Stay active in your area. Keep up with who your representative is, who your local representatives are, your local offices, and just vote when it comes time to vote. Not just for the president, but for all the voting that comes around. That's all it takes.
Absolutely. Who's your county sheriff? Who's your city council person?
Mhm.
It's you can have a tremendous impact at the local level as well, and that's you're absolutely right about that. I mean, when people get involved at the local level, the power of your involvement is magnified.
Yep.
As important as it is that we reelected Barack Obama last year, and I support the president in most of what he does. I was only one out of more than 100 million voters. But when I'm voting for my mayor or my city council person, I'm probably one out of several thousand voters. So the magnitude of my influence is substantially greater, and you can feel that when you go and talk to your local officials.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Well, we are definitely looking forward to staying tuned into how the progression of this bill is playing out, and we wish you all the success and spreading the good word. Absolutely, yes. And we'll do our part as well.
Great. Well, have a great afternoon, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you very much for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
All right, take care.
All right, you too. All right, folks, that was, again, Representative Jeff Irwin of the Ann Arbor area, and we really appreciate his time, and, of course, really appreciate all of his efforts down at the Capitol. Definitely is putting in the good word for the patients, for policy change, and, like I said, for sensibility.
Yeah, even if it doesn't have very much support yet, I mean, it has the co-signers, but if it's getting passed or not, it has to start somewhere. So we're thrilled that it's at least on the docket.
Yep. And again, this is on you guys.
Yeah, it's all on you.
Like Representative Irwin said, like Jeremy has said, I've said, Chelsea said many times over, all it takes is you guys be a little bit active. All you gotta do is call, email, write a letter if you're even that old school, to your local representative. Let them know how you feel about things in your, right now going on in your life and with the bills going around. Even higher, go to the Senate. You know what I'm saying? You can write all these letters. You can call these people. You're not going to be like bugging these people.
No,
when you call them, that's their job. Yeah, you're going to get a secretary probably, but your secretary is going to take down the answer or the question, and then you probably get a response back by email or a phone call. I've tried it. I know we've all tried it.
Yep, I write to my representative and my senator all the time.
And it's that easy, because if they don't know what their people want, they're just going to guess.
And they're going to vote however they want.
They're going to ask
their own personal opinion. And we've seen the effects of that. That doesn't work out so well. So.
And it also can be tough, like Representative Irwin mentioned. He deals with a lot of different issues, obviously, not just marijuana.
Yeah, they may not even be aware of some of these issues that are important to us.
That's the thing. You may be asking a question, but at the same time, you're probably going to be providing that politician a lot of information that will help them make that decision, help them make a more educated decision, versus them just going and trying to find out research on their own. They're probably going to be much more in tune or more likely to want to listen to what it is that you have to say versus just reading some blog or the newspaper.
So,
should I remember that one day we sat at the Senate Judiciary Committee? I think it was like the first 2 hours was like list after list after list of different things going on with different parts of our community in our state that have nothing to do with medical marijuana. Just like go and go and go, and then it got to ours, and it was like real quick over again. Like that's how serious it is. Like these people are dealing with so much stuff every day, like schoolings, transportation, environment, all that jazz. So if you call them, just make sure you have your information. Make sure you have the House bills you want to ask about, or you have, if you have a law you want to ask about, make sure you have the information, like the numbers and stuff correct for it. Just don't call and tell them you want to talk about medical marijuana. You can say you do, but it's cool. But if you really want to be taken seriously, call with the right information, or write with the right information. Do a little research and read that stuff before you ask about it too. So that way you aren't, he ain't asking you a question, and you're like, or she, and they aren't asking you a question. You're like, you know what? I don't know.
Well, every time I write my representative, I state my stance on it and what the stance is, and then I also ask them what their stance is. If they have one, if they don't, I give it to them anyway. So and they will definitely write you back and let you know what they think.
Absolutely.
And sometimes just your letter changes their whole perspective on the issue. So
you could be that one person.
Yep. And if you don't know how to get a hold or in touch with your lawmakers, your congressmen, we can definitely help you out at the club. Absolutely. Yep. Any phone numbers, any cover letters, I can write anything up for you. So you don't know how to write a good letter in support of any of these House bills? I will write one for you, and you'll just sign your name, and we will mail it to the right guy.
We will help you get that done.
Sure.
We've had them on our webpage before.
Yep.
I don't know if it'd be that difficult. I'm not going to promise, because we have to make sure we can do it first. But I'm sure we could probably see if we could probably get a letter posted on our webpage.
Yeah.
Or all you got to do is just print it up, sign it, and send it.
Yep. Eventually, on our political webpage, we will have all that for you.
I remember we
so
did
you'll
that.
just click on whatever representative is yours, or possibly type in your zip code and it'll send it to the correct person.
How many did we send out last time? I know we did. We printed a bunch of them, and we had everyone sign I think it was to Schutte or Snyder. It was one of the two, and I think we sent a few thousand.
I think that was before me. I don't know.
I mean, you were still part of the club.
I don't think I was here for then. I was on a hiatus.
You weren't doing the political part, but you were still at the club as a member. I remember because I think it was like a year or two ago. Wow. Sorry, time has passed, guys. But I know we did that, and we got like a couple thousand letters sent out, like to, I think it was Representative Snyder. Or not Representative Snyder, sorry. Governor Snyder. Wow. Sorry, guys. It's a lot of names to remember. But yeah, that worked out really well.
On another note, this last week, the Department of Justice, this was big news if you've been keeping track. This was in regards to Washington and Colorado, which both passed legalization measures this last year. Everyone was interested to know, how does this play out? We have the states going one way, the federal government going another, and wondering if we're going to have a battle in the courts over, respecting the will of the voters in both of those states. So last week, the Department of Justice came out and said basically they've got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, they're not going to sue them. It's a waste of their time, more or less.
That's pretty much what they said.
They're kind of admitting to their failure of their prohibition.
And I think the biggest thing is that they said, look, we have other things going on that are more important for us than to go in and try to create this issue, spend money on it, and so forth. And I'm glad to hear them say that, because that is the honest truth. You have voters in those states who were willing to go to the polls, put forth their opinions. The majority won. And so to have the federal government step in and say, well, those people don't know what's best for themselves, it's really kind of counteractive to what this whole country is all about.
Yeah, so it's good to hear that they're supporting states' decisions.
Absolutely.
And if you want to read that entire statement, it is on our political board at the club.
There you go.
So you can read every word they had to say. And there are a few stipulations for those states, as far as, of course, they have to regulate it somewhat. But for the most part, they're not going to mess with them at all.
And this is, again, dealing with the states themselves. You think about the people that are actually involved in the program and so forth. Well, no one's involved yet. It's just getting started. But, when the state government is going to set up departments to handle regulation and so forth, you don't have to worry about the federal government coming in and prosecuting state employees for, potentially violating federal laws. And this is a concern. This is something that we've seen here in our own state of Michigan. It is an issue that we are dealing with here in Michigan. And,
so it'll be interesting to see if, I know just a few weeks ago, several dispensaries and places out west were getting raided. So it'll be interesting to see if that stops post-statement.
Well, and I think that we have to take this as it is a good direction, continuing to move forward with marijuana policy reform. However, it's just one small step. And like Chelsea pointed out, there are still raids going on and being conducted on medical marijuana facilities in states that do have medical laws. So I think it's something that we have to continue to push for, to have that respected. And I think that we have to, take a look at this. We have the Vanderbeek case. I might be saying that wrong, but that's a Supreme Court case that will be viewed here in the state of Michigan. And this is dealing with the supremacy of state law versus federal law. And you can see right here, last week, basically, the way this last scenario went, the feds will respect the state's laws. So that might be some type of thing that our Supreme Court could take a look at, maybe take into consideration when they're making their own views or making their own decisions. And it's going to be something that we have to continue to keep track of. It's a bigger issue than just medical marijuana. We have to find out, whose supremacy is supreme, in a sense.
See which way it goes.
It's kind of an interesting question there.
Yeah.
I think we've got a couple club events coming up here that we wanted to share on the podcast today. Don't want to forget about those.
Take it away, Chad.
Take it away, brother.
Oh, do we have the dates?
Well, I have one. We are doing Adopt a Highway this month on a Sunday. It'll be Sunday, September 22nd, 9 o'clock in the morning. We'll be doing both sites. We have a full sign-up sheet already.
Yes.
I have to print out another one.
We need more, though.
We need more.
We need more
people.
2? Sorry, that's 4.
And what was the date again on that, Chelsea?
September 22nd.
September 22nd. Is that a Sunday?
It is a Sunday.
It is a Sunday.
Yep, Sunday.
Back to a Sunday, guys.
So it's a day that the club's not open, so you can all come and participate. We'll meet at the club at 10 a.m.
9. We'll make it 9.
9.
We're pretty slow moving.
10:30.
We leave at 10. So if you show up at 10, we're going to be like, get in the car!
We like to all socialize, have our coffee, and I always got to make sure everyone goes through a safety video about no dead carcasses, no methamphetamine bags. Not a whole bunch of
Stay out of the
stuff
road.
you gotta watch out for. Yeah, cars can kill you. We found this out in the video.
Yes.
If you walk into them.
But it's a lot of fun. Our new site was so filthy, trashed last time, so the more help we get, the merrier. So.
We need more.
You don't have to be a
site.
club member. If you have kids that are old enough to pick up trash, bring them with you. Any friends, they can't really enjoy our festivities inside our club.
But we can have coffee
before,
at the
but we have
educational
coffee
center.
and
We have
everything.
coffee.
We have the
so.
educational
Yeah.
center, which is open to the
Yeah.
public. So
So
it's
we,
usually where we
of
serve our
course,
food
will
and-
accommodate everybody. So.
Absolutely. Make sure we stay legal
even
and
if-
safe
Yeah.
and so forth. But obviously, this is one of the ways that the club likes to be able to give back to the community. We've been doing the Adopt a Highway program for 4.5 years now.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And, we've now taken on a secondary section of Michigan roads here in Genesee County.
Yeah, right in the heart, too.
Right in the heart, just down the road from the club. Not
North
too far,
Third
actually.
Highway. Woo woo.
Far enough into a safe zone, but still
Yeah,
plenty of trash to pick up.
sure.
So if you could put that down on your calendar and join us, we definitely would appreciate it, and we'd love to see you out there. And then I think we also have the soup kitchen coming up here
Yes.
soon. Is that
the sign-up sheet is at the club.
I
could
believe it's October 24th.
September.
Is it September? I know we're skipping either September or October. I believe it's October 24th.
I'm sorry, guys. We've all been
We've
really
been
busy.
very busy.
And yeah, we've had a long.
But the
couple
date
weeks.
is set.
But the date is set. If you're at the club and you want to go sign up, we have sign-up sheet at the security desk and GregJoslin.com. If you go check him out, ask the boss man to sign up, and also check out the cool T-shirts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
now? Are we serving 2 days like we did last time?
Nope, just one day
One
every
day?
month.
Yep.
Pretty much. I know we're
One
missing
Saturday
one
a month.
Saturday.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yep.
so there you go.
And
We
we
do
do
have a
have sign-ups
lapse.
until the end of December. So if 1 month we have 10 people signed up, feel free to sign up for November or
Yeah.
December.
There you go.
This way it's easier for people.
It's about 3-4 hours of work,
Yeah.
enrichment for the community. Another way that we like to give back to the community. And we've been working quite a bit with the North End Soup Kitchens
Yeah.
of
Yes.
Flint. It's certainly a high impact area. I mean, we have a lot of people out there in the city that are hurting. You all know that, and this is just a wonderful way for us to be able to give back. And we're
Plus, it's good food.
it is.
Yeah, it makes
It's
it
good
awesome.
because we help make it,
Yeah. And like Jeremy's saying, it's only a few hours of work, and you get a lifetime of self-fulfillment out of it.
and you get fed.
You feel great.
You get to eat the food
yeah.
you make.
Yeah. It's
It
like
feels great
real
cooking
soul food.
for someone else, like not like for a date. You know what I'm saying? Like you're going, you're cooking, you're preparing food for just people you never met before, and you're doing it because you want to. That's a good
Yeah.
feeling. It's like I said, it's way different than cooking food for your significant other or your parents. Nothing like it. Go there and check it out. You'll get this high off of it. You'll be like, wow, that is amazing giving like that. I feel tremendous right now. I feel like Superman.
Yeah, and a lot of a couple members of our club have even donated vegetables
Yeah.
every single
I know
week.
GregJoslin.com has been like working on like getting this whole garden going just to donate
He's
there.
got
I
a
know.
soup kitchen
Yeah.
garden galore.
I know the director there at the soup kitchen, John. Like he loves Greg. He's always talking. So where's your vegetable guy at? Where's your gardener at? Yeah. Oh, here he comes right here. Oh, I gotta talk to him quick.
Yep, a member Rich also. He's
Yes.
bringing in
Yeah.
lots of vegetables.
And
So
if
thanks,
you guys
guys.
are watching
That's
or
awesome.
listening and are club members or whatever around the area, and you guys have tons of extra vegetables, you can probably take them up to the soup kitchen. Just go in there and give them a call before you take a bunch of stuff up there, so that you're not getting turned down or something. Calling me a bad guy, but if you give them a call, you can probably take up food, anything else that they have that's not perishable, and vegetables. They will take it within a certain time period. So yeah, if you're in the
Yeah.
area, help out.
Yeah.
I mean, your local soup kitchen.
Want to touch base on one more thing. We haven't had a member meeting in quite a while.
That's right.
So I think we need to schedule a member meeting maybe for next month. Gather some
October?
ideas. Yep, for October, first Thursday of,
Let's look at the calendar real
month.
quick. We got a couple seconds here.
and hopefully we can do that. Member meetings are usually the first Thursday of every month, about 11 o'clock in the morning. We'll meet on the educational center
There
side.
we go.
And we just like to hear your feedback. It'll be October 3rd,
10-3-13.
10/3/13.
Okay.
It's a groovy
And
date.
yeah, 11 o'clock. If you have any questions, comments, concerns in regards to the club, or stay tuned on upcoming fundraisers, community events, club events. That would be the time to get your info,
it's
besides
official.
being posted throughout the club. So,
Yes.
yeah,
7-10-13. Be there or be
10, 3, 13.
Square.
10-3.
You just said 7, 10, 13.
Holy.
I think that means it's time to go.
Sorry, 10, 3, 13.
Dead time.
Oh yeah, and one more thing, we do have a law class September 13th.
Yeah.
If
Yes.
you're interested, it's from 2 to 4. I'll be teaching that, and we'll get you updated on all the different court decisions, and make sure you're up to speed with how the law works, new updates, and so forth.
Yep,
So it's still
Sep-
time to sign up for that. Sign up sheets up front. Again, that's September
Got the date.
13th.
Nice.
September 13th.
I know there's another class too that I'm going to be doing here, the grooming class. I don't have a date yet, but we have the sign-up sheet there. Once we get enough people signed up for it, we will host the class.
Yeah.
It makes it a lot easier that way, so we can get everyone that really wants to take the class to be able to come and sign up for it. Because that way I can talk to you guys and try to work it out and have a full class.
Yeah.
So if you guys want, groom class, groom design, I'd like to get even more in depth. I know I've talked to a few of your caregivers that have came to me personally, and I know you guys had a lot of big questions, like questions more in depth than the usual basic class. If we do this and we sign up 10 people and get the class going, I will make this class be Q&A and also the normal class, so we can have a wide spectrum to really get personal with you guys.
Awesome.
Sounds
Yeah.
great.
Cool.
I like those personal
Sounds
classes.
great. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Excited.
Thanks again to Representative Irwin for joining us today. I really appreciate him. Thank you, Chelsea, for making that happen.
No problem. Thanks for calling
Fantastic.
in, man. You're awesome.
We do. And John, thank you for being in the studio and making it happen here at FlintTalkRadio.com.
Thank you, John.
Absolutely.
Yeah, John.
Thank you, listeners.
Yes. Join us again here next week on the Genesee County Compassion Club show, Ustream.tv, FlintTalkRadio.com. Feel free to share it on Facebook. We love you guys.
Peace out.
Genesee3C.com and Genesee Compassions on Facebook.
Word.